Okay guys, today we are going to talk about operations with decimals and the rules that you have to follow. Okay, so with addition and subtraction, the rules are pretty similar. So I'm going to write those out and then we'll talk about them. Okay, so let's say we have the example of 10 5/10 plus 11 74/100. So it says to find the decimal. We see the decimal. Line up the decimals, and it's talking about lining them up vertically. With addition and subtraction, your decimals have to line up. Fill in the empty space with a 0. Right here is an empty space. I'm going to put a 0. Add as usual. 0 plus 4 is 4. 5 plus 7 is 12. 1 plus 0 plus 1 is 2. And 1 plus 1 is 2. And then the final step is to bring down the decimal to your answer. So the decimal goes right there. And your final answer is 22 24/100. Very similar rules for subtraction. Okay, so for subtraction, let's say that I'm doing 12 7/10 minus 9 23/100. Again, I find my decimal and line my decimals up vertically. Fill in the empty space with 0 and subtract as usual. So with subtraction, we have our regrouping. So I can't take 3 from 0, so I make that a 10. Borrow from my neighbor, and I have 7. 6 minus 2 is 4. Again, I need to borrow and make this a 12. 12 minus 9 is 3, and bring my decimal down. So my final answer is 3 47/100. Multiplication has a few extra steps. With multiplication, the number with the most digits is going to go on top. I prefer to use our vocabulary terms, so I'm going to say the factor with the most digits goes on top. You do not have to line up the decimals. You're going to multiply like normal. And then you're going to count how many places the decimal has moved over in the first two, in both factors. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. And then you're going to move the decimal the same number of spaces in your product or your answer. So for example, if we have 1 201 thousandths times 25/100, you see I don't line up the decimal. I line up the rightmost digit. then you're going to multiply like normal. So 1 times 5 is 5, 0 times 5 is 0, 2 times 5 is 10, 1 times 5 is 5 plus 1 is 6. Put your placeholder since we have a second number. 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 1 is 1. Add those together, 5, 2, 0, 10, 2. That should be a 2, not a 1. Still early. Haven't finished my first cup of coffee. Now I'm going to count how many places that decimal moved. It moved 1, 2, 3 in the first number, and it moved 1, 2 in the second number. So this is 3 places, and this is 2 places. So I need to move the decimal a total of 5 places. The decimal's naturally here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So my final answer is going to be decimal 30025. Okay, for division, the divisor cannot have a decimal. If it does, you have to move the divisor decimal to make it a whole number. You're going to move the same amount of places for the dividend. And then you're going to place the decimal straight up where you write your answer. And then divide like normal. Sorry, rewrite the problem and then divide like normal. So for this example, let's say that I have 3/10, and I'm going to divide that into 1 and 41/100ths. Just to remind you, this is your divisor, and this is your dividend. I want a whole number, so I need to move that decimal to make it a whole number. I moved it 1 place in the divisor, so I have to move it 1 place, my pen went too far, in the dividend. I'm going to rewrite that now as 3 divided into 14 and 1/10. It's going to get the same answer. The quotient will be the same. Divide like normal. I'm going to flip my paper over and divide it on the back because I've run out of space. Hopefully you have not. 3 cannot go into 1, so I put a 0. 3 can go into 14 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. Bring down your 1. 3 can go into 21 7 times, and your decimal was here, so your steps tell you to bring it straight up in your answer. So your answer is going to be 4 7/10. You're going to want to trim the outside of this paper and glue it in your notebook very nicely on page 107.